I am not a citizen with great influence. I am simply a grieving mother who wants to keep this case in the public light in hopes that one day someone will come forward with some information in what happened to my son. Those are the words of Ann McKenzie, whose son suddenly vanished one day while at work in 2002. For 2 decades, she has searched for answers, and for 2 decades, those answers have eluded her. Christopher Thompkins was just 20 at the time of his disappearance, and his case has become one of the most baffling in Harris County history. Born on December 28, 1981, Christopher Carlton Thompkins was described by his loved ones as a happy, outgoing, and hard-working young man. A devout Christian, he lived with his mother, Ann, in Ellerslie, Georgia, and by all accounts, the pair had a strong bond. Christopher was last seen on January 25, 2002. At the time, the 20-year-old worked as part of a 4-man team of surveyors, a job he reportedly enjoyed. He showed up to begin his shift after 8 a.m. and journeyed with one of his co-workers to their job site near County Line Road in Harris County, Georgia. Throughout the morning, the 4 men worked in a line, spaced approximately 50 feet apart from one another. The area they were working in appears to be rather densely wooded. In the early afternoon, the 4 men stopped for lunch. At around 1 p.m., they began work again. They looked away from Christopher for just a moment, and by the time they looked back, the 20-year-old was gone. His tools were on the ground, but the man himself had vanished. Christopher's colleagues were, by all accounts, baffled as to what had just happened. They didn't see or hear anything odd, and so they speculated that he had walked further into the woods for some reason, possibly to relieve himself. However, as the minutes passed, and Christopher failed to return, they grew concerned and began a search of the area, all while calling his name. Despite their efforts, no trace of Christopher was found. For unknown reasons, Christopher's mother wasn't informed of the disappearance until 4:15 that afternoon. There are mixed reports about who contacted the police first. Some sources state that Christopher's colleagues or boss did, but others state that it was his mother who called first. Either way, they were informed that a missing persons report could not be filed until 24 hours had elapsed. Since investigators wouldn't start looking for Christopher, his family began search efforts instead. They quickly discovered a worker's boot hanging from the top of a barbed wire fence in the area the men were working in, and it was confirmed as belonging to Christopher. On that same fence, they recovered a blue thread, likely from the 20-year-old's trousers. 12 cents were discovered on the ground, believed to have fallen from his pocket. Christopher's other boot would be found 5 months after he went missing, recovered by a farmer who found it in a swampy area of his land. The boot was about half a mile from where he disappeared. There were no signs of a struggle, and there was nothing to indicate where he might have gone or what might have happened to him. In the 20 years since Christopher vanished, no further evidence has come to light in his case. While the police spoke with the 20-year-old's colleagues, they didn't seem to garner any useful information. His boss reportedly told investigators that he'd been acting strangely in the days leading up to his disappearance, but it's unclear what was meant by this, as he did not elaborate on what sort of behaviors Christopher was exhibiting. Notably, Ann McKenzie rejects this information, noting that her son had been behaving perfectly normal in the days before he vanished. She told WTVM that the morning of January 25, 2002 had been like any other. They both headed to work together. Ann worked as a babysitter for Christopher's boss at around 8:10 a.m. She told authorities, "Chris lived with me and I saw him every day. There was neither strange behavior on his part nor any distress." Christopher's case was eventually closed. There was no sign of foul play, injury, or animal attack, and authorities concluded that the 20-year-old had simply decided to start a new life. Harris County Sheriff at the time, Mikey Jolie, said, "He walked off the job site, which was consistent with what the co-worker said, walked through the woods, went over towards the interstate. We believe that he got into an automobile and just left the area." Jolie noted, though, that his opinion changed when Christopher failed to contact his mother. He told WTVM, "My biggest fear is that when he came up missing in 2002, he went to a large city. Right after he came up missing, he might have overdosed or something else might have happened to him. Because he had no identification on him, that city went ahead and disposed of the body. Christopher's family, though, don't believe either of law enforcement's theories. His aunt, Rosalind, noted that he didn't have a drug problem and that she didn't believe the 20-year-old had just walked away. "I don't believe he disappeared with one shoe. Who's going to walk around with one boot on in the cold weather on a rural road? I don't believe that happened. They know what happened to Chris, they just not telling." The police never considered Christopher's colleagues suspects or persons of interest, despite them being the last people to see the young man alive before he vanished. One of the men retained a lawyer shortly after the disappearance, which has led to some suspicion in online true crime circles, but it is often said that hiring a lawyer before engaging with police is good practice, regardless of whether one is guilty or not. More notable is the fact that one of his co-workers was sentenced to prison for what is only described as a violent crime conviction, just months after the 20-year-old went missing. The names of the three men have never been made public, so finding out the exact nature of this violent crime is not possible at this time. There are 4 main theories about what became of Christopher: that he left to start a new life, that he met with an accident which was possibly covered up by his co-workers, that he had an accident, became disoriented and got lost, or that he met with foul play, possibly at the hands of his co-workers. His mother believes that he will never come home, stating, "I truly believe in my heart that my son is no longer alive. However, I need closure. I need to know what happened that day and where my son's body is." 20-year-old Christopher Thompkins was last seen on January 25, 2002, near County Line Road in Harris County, Georgia. He is described as an African-American male with black hair and brown eyes. At the time of his disappearance, he weighed 130 pounds, and his hair was braided. He may have a mustache, beard, or goatee, and his height is between 5'7" and 5'9". Christopher has an ice cream cone tattoo on his right arm, with the name Chris written vertically inside the design. The opening of the cone contains the head of a joker wearing a hat. When Christopher was last seen, he wore a black shirt, a blue and grey plaid jacket with a grey hood, navy blue work trousers by the brand Dickies, tan FUBU work boots, a black skullcap, and a black watch. If he is still alive, he will be 43 years old in December. If you have any information about Christopher's disappearance, you can contact the Georgia Bureau of Investigation's Greenville office at 706-655-5842. Alternatively, you can contact the GBI tip line at 800-597-8477. And there you have the facts. Please leave a comment down below with your own theories and speculations, and remember to like this video and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.